I'm Anu Parikh, owner and founder of Pangea Charging, and this is my story. I've always wanted a career in sustainability. Remember headlines all the time watching the evening news with my dad, watching Peter Jennings, global warming, seeing bulldozers, knocking trees down, places on fire, and just a whole bunch of headlines about global warming. And I just remember I wanted to be a part of the solution and didn't really want to see our world destructed any further. I first took action when I was probably in high school, starting the environmental club, or as my cherished friends nicknamed it, the Tree Huggers of America. Coach Priest, how are you doing?
Good, Noob. How are you?
Pretty good. I just wanted to make sure I get you on my senior video because you helped me start the environmental club.
I love the tree huggers.
Yeah, now you love it just because you're on video. You had to say that. I feel like the catalyst to caring about the environment really just stems from my own resourcefulness. Having spiral notebooks that, were sold with 80 pages. At the end of the school year, I'd have burned through 40, 60 pages, and there'd be these 20 pages completely blank. And rather than toss the whole spiral, I remember ripping out those 40 or 60 used pages, conserving the remaining 20 to use for the following school year. And of course, I was a 90s kid, so another motivating factor was my inspiration, Captain Planet, who I actually ended up in later years dressing up as one year for Halloween. We just came off a big season of layoffs, and it's something I'm actually quite familiar with, unfortunately. But I say unfortunately, but the reality is layoffs throughout my career that I've experienced have actually helped me elevate my life and always get to the next stage. So I actually have come to look at these as blessings in disguise and really the universe working in one's favor. My first layoff goes back to being freshly graduated out of college. I was working for about 6 months, and we hit the Great Recession. And desperate times call for desperate measures. I basically wore a sandwich board and walked through downtown Houston, handing out resumes, hoping to find somebody that was hiring and looking for, a go-getter. It ended up being someone who photographed my picture in downtown and submitted that to CNN. That got me a 30-second spotlight on national television. Like many Americans in recent times, I was recently laid off in January, so I'm seeking a entry-level marketing position. After that CNN stunt, I actually ended up at a little known company called Google, where I worked for 3.5 years or so, and it was there that I really learned just sales acumen, sharpened all my sales skills. So after departing Google through, once again, a layoff, I searched again for what is my next step. And really, once you work at a company like Google, one of the world's best companies, it really makes you wonder what's next, because where do you go from that? I basically looked at it as an opportunity to, again, scratch that itch. What is it that I'm really interested in? What is it I'm passionate about? I end up finding a job that really scratches that itch. It said it was for EV infrastructure, which at the time I didn't know what it meant, but they had headlines and keywords of building charging stations for the Tesla Model S. I really felt that this was a ground floor opportunity to get in, learn the market, the industry. I was pleased to do that for 2 years in Houston, selling charging stations. But 2013 to 15, a little premature for the market. Oftentimes, a lot of the offices here in Houston, as you can imagine, are oil and gas companies. They weren't quite receptive to it at that time. And so after 2 years, I honestly called it quits. It was just too tough. Financially, it didn't make sense to continue down that career. So I went to chase a paycheck. Try to elevate my, financial situation again. Went back to software. It only took a matter of 3 days. I realized it just wasn't for me. I had to get back to what I loved. I started applying all over the place, the Teslas, the Solar Cities. In an attempt to actually get into Tesla, I didn't want to apply online, so I actually developed a picture resume that I mailed off to Elon Musk. With the help of my brother, we tracked down what we think was his home in, I think, Beverly Hills, mailed it off, certified mail, got a signature, but don't know if it ever made it to his home or his eyes. Eventually, I found myself with an opportunity to get back in EV charging. And thanks to a call from a now industry colleague, Julie Taylor, we were in communication. She said, hey, I think I have this gig for you here at ChargePoint, which was another EV industry leader. She said, hey, you've been sending us leads, they've been closing, maybe there's a role for you here. And it was to sell exclusively to multifamily. I basically got offered a job at ChargePoint, made tremendous friends in the industry, and that was honestly one of the best times of my career.
There's growing concern at this hour over a possible outbreak of a mystery virus.
Unfortunately, all of that came to another halt with COVID and the pandemic. Found myself once again in another layoff. And maybe it was just meant to be. About maybe 6 months into the layoffs, I got calls from old prospects, and I started thinking, you know, these folks aren't calling the 1-800 numbers of the manufacturers, they're calling me. So maybe there's something there. That's what prompted me to file for an LLC. You know, and looking back, for those of you even facing layoffs, I can tell you that having gone through 3 in my very short career at this point, they were absolutely stepping stones. They were what allowed me to refocus and recognize what I was really put here on earth to do. And it always drove me closer and closer to that goal or that purpose. Those layoffs are ultimately what's allowed me to be where I'm at today, which is running my own business, having the best time of my life, being able to do exactly what I want on my terms. And so I would encourage those of you who are looking at layoffs at this time to really think about what is your purpose and go out and pursue it. I can't tell you how empowering running a small business and your own business can be for your own life. One, the same year I happen to get laid off, I make a bet with my mom where, you know, she's been wanting a new home for a number of years now. And so I made a bet that I said, how about I'll give you 3 shots, just make one, and I'll get you a house in the next year. I wanted her to make the shot, but she actually made one in the 2nd attempt. Ooh! And you know, it's basically my word is gold, but unfortunately being laid off made it more difficult to deliver on that promise in 2020. So it's been on my mind ever since, and I feel like starting my business, that's been the driving force and the motivation to make my business succeed, is that I still want to deliver on that promise that I made in 2020. Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Hi, come on in.
Good to see you.
Long time no see.
Yep. How's it going?
Fine, how about you? Glad you're here.
Got you a little something from New York?
Oh, thank you. From Big Apple, huh?
Yep. You know, the value of being a small business owner is you're no longer operating for some faceless shareholder or folks who aren't directly involved. And I find a lot of pride in being able to deliver things that contribute to my own life, to my own family's life. I mean, they're really my only shareholders, is the people in my family.
How the business is going on?
Pretty good. I'd say on track to sell 1,000 charging stations. So if I'm able to do that, help you get a new house in 1 year.
Instead of house, first I need the daughter-in-law.
First things first, I'll sell 1,000 charging stations, then get you a daughter-in-law. As I'm sure any small business owner can relate, the logo is something you look forward to addressing when you're creating your business. This is where the Pangea logo started, in this seat, right at this table. December 2020 in my parents' bedroom, as they were actually sleeping, I remember sketching some version 1 drafts of what this logo would be and just drawing out a bunch of samples, I guess, and picking colors, picking kind of the effect that it would end up looking like. I do have it. I was going through that evening just vision boarding my logo. Naming it Pangea was really a nod to the supercontinent, where the world was really one. It was really an opportunity just to have kind of echo that idea of the planet, the world. The tagline was bringing the world together through electrification, and I really felt that was super aligned with what I was trying to accomplish, is to bring everyone together in one common mission to save our planet. Everything I was thinking through that night of what the potential of the logo could have been, that's what we ended up going with.
There's a reason Anoop Parikh is collecting pictures of electric vehicles parked around the country, but more on that in a moment.
So, I mean, there's certainly a lot of challenges in selling to anyone, including multifamily, but I'd say one of the more common ones is, hey, we don't see the cars, right? They're not at our community. That's not our demographic. And I obviously challenge that because I don't think that's a acceptable answer, because the reality is this shift is happening whether anyone likes it or not. I think it's important that apartments know that anybody can drive electric, no matter your, income level, and that they're gonna show up at apartment communities of all kinds and types. My favorite part was always, you'd be able to go around, you'd drive the parking lot of the apartment first and capture pictures, and you could basically point out like, hey, there's actually an electric car on your property. Did you know that? And they'd often didn't even know it. And I realized that showing people where the cars were at actually became very valuable in starting that conversation of where the EV chargers should be. The early years when I was selling here in Houston, basically anytime I saw a Tesla, I'd chase them down or follow them, see where they're parking, where they're going into, as a way to find out where the charger should be. And this one time, I followed this Tesla for a good, 3 to 5 minutes, saw him pull into the Galleria Houston, and as soon as he got out of his car, I just flagged him down, asked if I could speak to him. Ended up being a successful owner of a business here in Houston as well. And the funny thing is, we've since become friends, and at the time he actually took a picture of me and tweeted it when I was out slinging charging stations, carrying it around, lugging it around town. And it felt a little bit like Will Smith, lugging around that big old thing in pursuit of happiness. So then, after realizing how much value there is in showing people where the cars are at, I worked with my buddy Matt to create something we call the EV Hunt, where we engage the local community and really just everyday people to show us where the cars were at, so we could then go in and pitch EV charging and inform that business owner, real estate owner, manager that, hey, these cars are here and there's a real value in you offering this amenity, and you could be serving a whole new market. So we were able to collect, almost over 100 submissions. We made the local news here in Houston.
Pangea's Instagram page is collecting pictures of where people see EVs anywhere in the US and Canada.
And we gave away prizes. And again, that goes to being a small business owner. You're able to just try out and test all these new fun ideas that you never would have in, say, a big organization. It's these 2+ years running Pangea Charging that I've really come to understand the value of a small business. It's truly amazing to see just the collaboration more than competition. I think people often think it's just a cutthroat sort of world, and the reality is when you run a small business, things are actually more collaborative and not competitive. You're actually looking to help folks in your community make your business a success, help others succeed, and that's where I've really enjoyed being a small business owner, is being able to do what you love, but helping others along the way. And I think what's great is when you're running a small business, there isn't just this very exclusive focus on revenue and profit and delivering shareholder value. My only shareholders are my family. They're my board of directors. I like to now refer to them as my CMOs, and that's Chief Motivation Officers. They're the ones I do this for. And I feel Pangea Charging is delivering that exact opportunity for me to provide for my family and loved ones. The other thing is being able to focus on the things you really want to. Here in Houston, it's always been a dream of mine to redefine and reshape what this city means. It's often known as the energy capital of the world. I really want it to be known as the renewable energy capital of the world. And so I get to use my business to drive those changes, bring in my clients into that story. I started this year promoting and talking about how I wanted to bring 1,000 charging stations to market. And I imagine for many folks probably thinking, how did you come up with that number? When you break down the math, it's actually very reasonable. 2 ports at 500 buildings. That's very much going to happen. I mean, there's going to be 500 buildings in the US that put in charging stations this year. And it's going to happen at buildings of all types. High rises, garden style communities, and workforce housing. Whether it's 2 ports at 500 buildings or 10 ports at 100 buildings. Together, I know we can absolutely bring 1,000 ports to market this year. For those who are looking to work with an EV charging provider, I really hope you'll consider working with a small business like Pangea Charging. I think you'll find that you get more hand-holding and detailed insights versus working direct with the manufacturer. And the reality is, when you work with a small business, you're pouring funds and spurring the economy locally to where you're at versus sending off your money to a manufacturer in whatever state they're at. And by doing business with Pangea, you'll be solidifying the idea that people can pursue their passions and still make a living. I'm living truth of that. I hope my story inspires some of you that pursuing your passions absolutely can pay off and be rewarding if you stick with it. And if you're a business or property looking to install electric vehicle charging stations this year, I hope you'll look to Pangea Charging and help us on the road to bringing 1,000 charging ports to market. So if you're looking for a real clutch player to help you with EV charging, I hope you'll look at Pangea Charging to be open for the game-winning shot.